here and get ready. This is the Noise Pollution Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And I really mean a very, very warm welcome back for another episode of the Noise Pollution Podcast. I know it's been a while, guys, but here I am. I am your host, Blake, and I am bringing you tonight a very highly anticipated podcast episode coming fresh to your ear holes from wherever you are listening in this world and whatever time you are listening to this episode. Welcome back, everyone. I know it's been a while, and there is good reason behind that, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's been quite some time since I put out a solo episode. And as this episode unravels some more details of some things that I've been up to lately and things that I've been getting involved in, you may understand why there's been such an absence and a lack of episodes from myself and this podcast. Previously on the Noise Pollution Podcast, you would have caught several swapcasts with my boy Brandon from the Badass American Heroes podcast. And only swapcasts have been the tip of the spear of this podcast as of late. And again, with good reason as to why that is the only form of content coming from this podcast. As history has unveiled itself for what the Noise Pollution Podcast stands for and what it represents, you know you guys come here for a vast amount of different things, different ideas, topics of conversation, some conspiracy theories, spirituality, awesome guests, whatever it is you come here for. Tonight will bring no difference in content. So Blake, I'm asking myself in the format as if I was a listener of my own podcast, which I may or may not be. That's irrelevant at this time. However, where have you been, man? Where's the episodes been? Where's the content been? Where we miss Blake. Truth be told, guys, it's been a while since I've sat solo behind a microphone. And again, it's for good reason. And that reason, if you guys can recall, a few months back, I can't even remember which month, whether it was September or maybe even October or possibly even late August. I do not know at this time off the top of my head, but I released an episode titled Episode 48, The End of the Podcast Cabal. And if you've listened to that episode, you've come to realize that, Blake trolled us on this episode. It was a good one. Well scripted, I might add. And it even showed at the end, the very end of that episode, of what that episode was really about. And what I'm here to do tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is reveal something even more, some things that have actually developed and taken place since the release of that episode. So to go back in history for a brief moment, that episode was made as a rebuttal episode from the Man Brain podcast, bonus episode number 14. Now, if you've ever listened to the Man Brain podcast, you know that it's a raw comedy podcast that can really go into any direction whatsoever. It is not for the faint of heart or the easily triggered. But in this Man Brain bonus episode number 14, I was attacked. It was all in good fun. I have thick skin. I can take some lashings. No big deal. It's all in good fun. You know, the one who he calls himself Dave Chafee, or however you say his name, from the land down under, puts out a good show, I thought, at the time. He's just poking fun at the Noise Pollution Podcast and myself. That's just fine. Like I said, I can take it. I can take a beating. So in this episode, like I said, it was a rebuttal from his brutal, I say again, brutal attack on my podcast. And I keep saying attack, but it's not. It was a comedic sketch, so to speak, with one of his characters as a nihilist, which goes against all of the things that I believe in and the things that I share and talk about on this platform. Regardless, my rebuttal to that episode was talking about the Man Brain podcast being a paid shill for this entity in the podcast world known as the podcast Cabal. So for about 20 some odd minutes, I read a very thought out and written script. And at the very end, I revealed that it was all just a joke. All in good fun. Haha. All for the laughs. And to make fun of the Man Brain podcast and Dave himself. Because in that episode, I basically told everyone to go give him 1-star reviews in iTunes, and the only thing the Man Brain podcast does is try to get you to subscribe to his Patreon account and try to get money out of every single person. Thank you, computer, for that annoying update sound, Jesus. So if you guys haven't listened to that episode yet, go back and check it out. Episode 48, the end of the podcast Cabal. So now this kind of brings me up to speed a little bit to today. Today is December 20th, 2018 at the time of this recording. I don't know what exactly happened from the release of that episode till today, but there somehow, some way, seemed to actually manifest a real and legitimate podcast cabal. And for any of you out there don't know what a cabal is, the mainstream definition would be your Illuminati, a secret organization of powerful individuals that their primary goal is to be just as they are, on the top. And they will do whatever is necessary to remain in the top of whatever they're doing. So, for example, in the Illuminati, you have your famous singers and movie stars and whatever else Hollywood has to offer to the Illuminati. However, we're not talking about that. We'll let another conspiracy podcast shed light on the Illuminati cabal. I am here tonight to announce to you, the listeners, that there has indeed manifest a podcast cabal. You heard it right, folks. I can't make this shit up. What started out as a joke manifested itself into a reality. Have you ever thought to yourself once before, you had an idea about something, right? Something you have never heard of or have seen before. It could be about anything, a book, a movie, a commercial, an invention of some sort, a product, what the fuck ever. And you're like, man, that's a really good idea. But sometimes it's a little far out there, right? And then you find yourself maybe a couple of months later, and what comes across the internet or the news or TV commercial, whatever it is, that one idea that you had thought about that one time, you're maybe sitting down and taking your morning shit, as an example. The universe works in very, very mysterious ways sometimes. And the universe can indeed manifest certain things into our three-dimensional reality. So upon me talking about this fake podcast Cabal, at the time, I might add, somewhere manifests an actual podcast Cabal. And this is not a drill, this is not a spoof, this is not a test anymore, as it was back when I released episode 48. This is the reason why I've been absent. It's because I've been bogged down trying to figure out what the fuck exactly is actually taking place. Is this actually real? Is it fake? What is going on here? The podcast Cabal is real. Somehow, it is here. And let me explain to you guys what this podcast Cabal is and what it does, from what I've discovered so far. It is an underground organization that is set out to either destroy or suppress indie podcasters such as myself and many, many others that are out there, so that the top podcasters, the ones that are in the top charts constantly, remain on the top of the charts. They use some paid shill podcasters to kind of disrupt the kind of underground indie podcaster scene. And it really denies the ability for these indie podcasters to really break out of the title of indie podcaster to mainstream. It's extremely challenging and extremely difficult when you have these paid shill podcasters just creating a muck on the bottom end of the podcast world. Ladies and gentlemen, there is millions and millions of podcasts out there. A lot big, a lot small, podcasts that talk about everything. If you have an idea about something, there is a podcast about it. And you might be a fan of one of these indie podcasters. Let's say mine, for example. And you may wonder to yourself, why isn't the Noise Pollution podcast in the iTunes charts? Why hasn't he risen to fame? Where are all of his sponsors at? He's been doing this for, I don't know, almost 2 years now at this point. Where's his claim to fame? Where's everyone else's claim to fame? There's lots of podcasters out there putting out amazing content. But yet, we're still at the bottom. And that is to blame for the podcast Cabal. And I'm not just sitting here speaking out of my ass, ladies and gentlemen. I have actual facts that you'll hear shortly. Over the past 2 months or so, I've been doing a lot of research on social media because that's where it seems to be right now. You can really only find it on Instagram and Twitter, maybe a little bit of Facebook. I'm going to make the wild assumption that there's probably some Facebook groups where activity does take place. I have yet to see any. Actually, disregard. I actually have seen a few indicators of podcast Cabal shenanigans taking place in some of the Facebook groups that I'm a part of as a podcaster. Networking groups and promotion groups and whatever else, the things that us podcasters do to promote ourselves and to gain traction and learn things and whatever else. One of the things that I've discovered is that there's actually a trending hashtag on Twitter. Maybe not trending so far or yet, but you can go on Twitter and search the hashtag Cabal Faux Life. Now, you may ask yourself, if this is really legitimate, why would it be Cabal Faux Life? Well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? They want to seem like it's very nonchalant. They want to make it seem like they're your friend and they're a very cool group of people that are just out there trying to help you and whatever else. No, it is not. I can promise you that. Seriously, go on Twitter, go to your search bar, and type in Cabal Faux Life. CABALFOLIFE. And you'll find lots of tweets from different podcasters. And lo and behold, guess who I discovered, who was one of the main users of that hashtag? Man Brain Podcast. Huh. Who'd have fucking thunk it, right? Turns out Dave and the Man Brain Podcast is actually a paid show. So that was the first thing I discovered with this, that this was actually really a thing now. Secondly, I actually received an email from the podcast Cabal. And I'll be honest with you guys for a minute. In fear, I deleted that email. There's no indicator of who it came from, and I'm not very tech savvy to be able to trace an IP, or I don't know how any of that shit works, but that's not me. I don't know how to do any of that. So I just left it as that. I got an email it's from the podcast. The email is Podcast Cabal. And the only things it said in that email was to mention 5 other podcasters to join the Cabal and await for further instructions. I did not respond. I did not do anything. I just deleted it. I'll go through my emails and see if it's still in the deleted folder. I don't know if I emptied that bin yet or not, but if it is, I will screenshot that and I will put that up on social media for you guys to see. Next, other podcasters that I'm friends with have also received the same email. Await for further instructions, it says. Nothing more. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what the development comes to be of that, but what's the major goal of the Podcast Cabal? I don't know. All I know right now, it seems to be at its infancy. Kind of just being funny and trendy on social media with a claim to fame and fortune and everything else. I don't know. These are just things I've seen people mention in tweets. And in fact, I'm going to play you guys a clip that I dug up off of the internet from another podcaster that was being interviewed by someone on YouTube. So I'm just going to go ahead and play that clip right now. I'll be back shortly.
So, all right. What is this thing, Cabal for Life?
I don't know.
Why do you go all over the place?
I know, but I don't know. I received an email, anonymous email, from the podcast Cabal, and it's apparently some kink podcast, and I was told to wait for further instructions.
That's it?
Yeah. So I'm doing what they want me to do, Cabal for Life. I think a few other people may have received the email also, but to me it seems almost like an eyes wide shut thing. You don't know what it is at all. But to get into it, there's certain tiers. But I have no idea. I received the email. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, Cabal Faux Life. So I'm doing that, and it's It's literally a waiting game.
What do you all take from that recording? That was just one mention of an email that this woman received. And she's just going along with it. No big fucking deal, right? Cabal for life. Fuck off. And yet, I bet now her little podcast probably has far more downloads than I do. I've been doing this for almost 2 fucking years, ladies and gentlemen. Putting my heart and soul into this project. Putting in the man hours. All by myself here at that. No help from anyone else. And I go back and I look at my numbers and I'm like, well, this can't be right. This was a great fucking episode. I talked about this for 30 minutes, whatever. I had this guest on talking about this incredible thing for 2 hours. Where are the numbers at? And this podcaster, all she does is really just burp and fart and talk about butt plugs for 45 minutes. We need to make podcasting what it once was. Great. Man Brain Podcast has recently come out with another episode talking about me once again. And they make it seem like they're laughing at me. Like I'm the fucking Alex Jones of the podcast world. Where everyone else is circled around me, pointing and laughing at me. I will not sit here and abide. I will not sit here and be silent. They will try to discredit me at all costs. They will try to defame me, make up things about me and this podcast. And if you hear those things, no, they are not true. I have been nothing but honest with you guys from day one, and I will always continue to be honest and bring you the content that the world deserves. You know, Man Brain Podcast thinks he's so funny. The things that they say about me, it's not even funny. Their podcast is not even funny at all. And I thought Dave was a friend. Honestly, I did. Oh, he's just some funny guy from Australia who makes fucking left hard jokes and whatever else that organization of Man Brain does. They sit there and they make a mockery out of me. Like I said, as before, I do not have thin skin. It does not mean anything to me. It is nothing in this virtue of podcasting. However, I would ask you, the listener, to develop your own opinions and understand that they will try to discredit me. This is something much larger than what we see right now. You just wait and see. So for now, I will continue to operate in the shadows of the online interwebs, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, watch my email, so on and so forth. But I would like to take this time to reach out to the internet of podcasters alike, like myself, and join me in the resistance of the podcast cabal. We need to make it known that this does, in fact, exist. And it is so multi-layered. Multifaceted than we even imagine. Join me, fellow podcasters. Use the hashtag in your social media tweets, hashtag #ResistCabal, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I would ask any of the listeners out there, if you see anything podcast Cabal related, please send that information my way. You know how things are in the internet goes. They get buried very fast, especially on platforms like Twitter. And Instagram likes to hide things from you. So if you see something, screenshot it and send it to me, please. All my lines are open all the time, as always. On Facebook, you can find me at Noise Pollution Podcast. I have a like page and a closed group. On Instagram, same, at Noise Pollution Podcast. I'm also on Twitter, at Pollution Radio. So if you find something on one of any of these Facebook, social media platform things, send it my way, please. Or you can shoot me an email, and that's at noisepollutiontalks@gmail.com. If you sent me an email, you might as well send me a DM. Just say, hey, I sent you an email, just in case for some reason it gets sent to my spam folder. I do check all my folders every day, just to make sure I didn't get an email from someone that just got filtered to spam. So I will continue to report on the podcast Cabal as more information comes down the pipeline. So again, listeners, podcasters alike, please be vigilant. Keep your eyes open. Do not fall for the trap that is the podcast Cabal and their claims to fame and glory. Do not fall for it. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I am Blake. This is the Noise Pollution Podcast. Take care. We'll see you on the next one. And remember, #resist Cabal. Out.